Well, hello there, everyone out there in YouTube land. You've tuned in yet another incredibly exciting video from UXW Bill. This is actually something of a continuation concerning something that I talked about last week or so. Well, that was when I actually shot the video. It didn't get uploaded until several days later. But as many of you are aware, Furhead, the Keykeeper, and myself all worked together recently to bring Furhead's 1998 Jeep Wrangler back to life, a goal which we were mostly successful in attaining. However, we had to make a run, Furhead and I did, in the silver Buick, to go and get a crankshaft rotation sensor for the Jeep because somehow the original had gone missing. Well, we cruised past a couple of the neighbors' places, and I saw that one of them had set out a number of different electronic devices, and of course, it's against the law now, and has been for a while here in Illinois, for people to throw away electronics in the trash, but that doesn't seem to stop people. I wasn't confident that these things would be there by the time I cruised back the other way, but I didn't really have any choice because Furhead and I were on a pretty tight timetable. And unfortunately, there have been some scrappers driving around here and many other places as well. I know it's a very up-and-coming thing in the world today to have scrappers running around picking up stuff out of the trash for the raw elements. They don't care about any of the rest of it. But people like me who are interested in repairing things that they find in the trash or happening upon incredibly fortunate scores are naturally kind of annoyed by this sort of thing. Fortunately, when Furhead and I returned, the two monitors and the television set were still there. Now, the television set was just a little portable Philco branded job from about 1995 or so, and the other monitor was a 19-inch Dell CRT, not anything fancy like a Trinitron or anything like that. And since I have too many portable televisions and perfectly good working computer CRT displays already, I went ahead and donated both of those items to an area thrift store because I figured someone could probably use them more than I could, and even though I've put up a lot of shelving and increased my storage capacity tremendously in recent times, I still don't want to have a problem of running out of storage space and having things be in any more of a mess than they are. So for the sake of this video, what we're going to do today is test this thing out. Now, the panel is not broken in this, as I previously noted, but it's entirely possible that there could be some kind of an electronic problem, could be bad capacitors in the power supply, could be that the panel just failed, could be that there's an electronic problem of some sort that keeps this thing from displaying correctly. But I have repaired several of these monitors over the years, and what I have found is that the 5x4 or 4x3 aspect ratio models are typically much more reliable than Samsung's 16x9 or 16x10 models. I have no idea why that is, because I would assume that they all run down the same assembly line, but I have practically never seen one of these square-shaped aspect ratio monitors with any sort of a problem over the years, other than a few models which were defective out of the box at my previous place of work when they upgraded all their old computers and CRT monitors many years ago. So let's go ahead and hook this thing up. I've gone ahead and turned off the hard power switch at the base of this unit because although I'm a big believer that when you're playing with computers, you're not really into computers unless you've had something go bang or start smoking or catch on fire. And in my years of playing with computer equipment, I have certainly had stuff do that over time, but I will be the first to tell you I'm kind of a big chicken, and I don't like it when that stuff happens unexpectedly. So I went ahead and turned off the hard power switch on this display. I'm going to go ahead and drive this thing from a trusty old Dell Dimension 4100 series personal computer. This was recently decommissioned by a client of mine, and they asked me to collect it for recycling and secure data erasure purposes. So I figured what better thing to do than to use this computer, because it'd be sitting here for a while erasing its hard drive, and that'd be a good smoke test and burn-in test for this display, which I'm really kind of hopeful that it'll actually work, even though it was pretty dirty when I got it. I've cleaned it up quite a bit since then. Let's go ahead and connect the power cable to it. Nothing went bang just yet. Of course, I haven't turned the power switch on either. Alright, you may just get to see how high UXW Bill can jump. I can jump pretty good, even as heavy as I am, too. So let's see. This is actually an analog VGA cable that I stole off of an NEC flat panel on top of the stereo receiver there. And while the spacing and the pinouts for these analog VGA connectors are of course standard, These have had a little bit of use over the years, and they're not really tightening up all that well, but that should be good enough for government work. So let's go ahead and pick this thing up, hopefully avoiding putting any impression marks into the LCD panel from my fingers. Go ahead and turn the power switch on here and see if it trips the breaker and throws the room into darkness. Well, nothing blew up. Alright, let's see if we've got power here. Well, we do have a power LED after a fashion, but it's very, very dim. So I would imagine this thing probably has a power supply problem, because that power LED has not changed to indicate that the monitor might be in standby, and I can't even see the ghost of the analog and digital sensing indicator that these monitors put up. Okay, well, it has gone into standby now. Let's just go ahead and see if this computer will make it display anything. Well, you gotta love that hard drive noise, don't you? And it's looking like this monitor might very well be a repair project, because even though it's sensed the signal, the backlighting is definitely not coming up. And that power LED, despite what it looks like on camera, is actually very, very dim. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a power supply regulation problem of some kind. And boy, this camcorder, it just does not like focusing on that display panel. Plus, it looks like there's some kind of a dust bunny on the lens. Let's see, if I got enough cord on this lamp. No, I do not. So I really can't do that without risking some sort of impressive crash. But there doesn't even... I can't even make out a ghost of an image. So I would say that this monitor likely has a pretty major power supply problem of some kind. Okay, I'm back at last, having concluded my adventures in monitor disassembly. This is one of those annoying Samsung displays that's actually held together by snaps, and it's very hard if you don't have the proper tool, like a little plastic spudger or something along those lines, to get it into the display without marring the plastic casing. But it can be done, especially if you use your fingers and kind of flex the plastic around the edges of the frame of the display until one of the plastic snaps lets go, and then you have established a beachhead from which to continue the invasion, of course. I've gone ahead and separated the circuitry portion of the display from the actual panel. I was slightly surprised to see that Samsung apparently did not manufacture this display. As you can see there, it was made by Chime Optoelectronics, which is a very large producer of flat panel and flat panel displays, but then again, so is Samsung, and it just amazes me to think that Samsung couldn't have built their own display in-house for less or even the same amount of money than it would have cost them to farm it out. As I expected, this power supply board is full of crappy capacitors. Almost every capacitor, in fact every capacitor you can see on this board, is the so-called Capzon brand, or as people in the know call them, Crapzon capacitors, because this is exactly what they do. The tops of them bulge out, they go bad, and they keep the thing from working. And in this case, given that almost all of them are bloated, I would believe that this display power supply had a hard time producing either the necessary high or low voltages. The good news is that unlike the last Samsung panel I worked on and made a video about, at least these transformer coils, which will be the driving source of power for the backlights, are not burned up. Ultimately, that display did fail because, well, the transformer was already burnt, and it just kind of went the rest of the way, and I never have secured a replacement for it. The power supply was actually made by Samsung, if you can believe it, also made in China. And over here there's evidence against this insulating pad that this thing has actually been quite warm over time. But that's really not surprising, considering that there's no fan-forced ventilation in these monitors. In fact, fan-forced ventilation in any monitor is only rarely seen. Unfortunately, it does appear that that what I thought was flora and fauna inside this thing was actually living creatures. Take a look at some of this stuff right here. We'll go ahead and move in real close on it. You know what that looks like to me? That looks like insect leavings. That's really, really disgusting. I think, I'm getting kind of tingly here just talking about it, but I think that that actually might be the leg of a roach or something. Fortunately, I let this thing sit outside several days, and I took it apart outside, so I don't think there's anything still living inside it. I may go ahead and slip it into a bag and fumigate it or something along those lines, but I haven't seen any evidence that there's anything living inside it any longer. So that's plenty disgusting, but at some point in the future, when I get the time, I'll go ahead and order some replacement capacitors for this power supply board and put this thing all the way back together and see whether or not it'll come back to life. But I would expect that it will probably make a complete recovery. And my guess is that in addition to a lack of housekeeping, that it was probably the warmth that attracted the bugs into this thing. I really wonder if maybe this display was used outside, like in a shop or something. I can't comprehend someone paying that kind of money for a flat panel display, especially a nice big one like this, which undoubtedly would have been expensive, and then throwing it outside into a workshop. But that's people for you. So that's pretty much it for now with this video. I've got to go ahead and order some capacitors. Just replace everything on this board with the possible exception of the primary filter cap there, because believe it or not, I've never actually seen one of those go bad, which is odd because they are under some of the most stress of anything in this switch mode power supply circuitry. But I think this monitor can definitely live again, clean it up, clean the dust, clean the bug guts out of it, things like that. Put it back together, and I think it will probably be fine. So thank you for watching, and please feel free to leave a comment if you have one.